Hello, hello, and welcome to odds on Europa League round of 16, first leg. We have 8 matches to analyze, and Alvaro Romeo and Daniele Fisichella will bring you their tips for each game. And at the end, they will also share their best bet and ACCA. How are you guys?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Great stuff.
Good to see you again. Before we get the show going, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. Now let's go. Our first stop is in Rome for one of the best ties in this Europa League round of 16. Rome against Real Sociedad. The team from the Italian capital arrives at the back of defeating Juventus in the weekend. 3 wins in the last 5 in all competitions, and they played a good game to send Salzburg out in the previous round in the playoff. Real Sociedad showing a dip in their performances so far, just 1 win in the last 7 matches between La Liga and Copa del Rey. Dani, we know Roma for keeping low-scoring games.
Yes.
Also, Real Sociedad scoring 3 against Espanyol a few weeks ago, but they scored only 4 in the last 6 matches. No wonder goals, guys, under 2.5 market shows odds of 1.63. If there is a winner, the feeling is that whoever wins will win 2-0. Either that or to start maybe looking for a draw, starting odds of 3.45. So what's your analysis here, guys? I start with you, Dani.
An under, a cagey game. I like an Oddspedia website. The under 2.25 goals, 182. That means if there are only 2 goals, you win half for stake. But, that's no surprise. If you look at the numbers of Roma, the masters of 1-0, 2-0. Last season, they won 7 games, either 1-0 or 2-0 at home. This season, they've already won 8 games with the same score sheet. And of course, they won with Juventus 1-0, kept 7 clean sheets in the last 8 games at the Olimpico. And they got the master of the knockout games, Jose Mourinho. Because Jose Mourinho, you can tell everything about him, whatever you like or you don't like it. He knows how to manage these sort of games, especially the first leg. Roma are becoming slowly a bit of a specialist in knockout European games. They won 9 of the last 10. Against Salzburg, they played well in the first half, in the first leg, had a lot of chances. The keeper was the best player on the pitch. And then in the second leg, helped also by a very good performance by Spinazzola, who's coming back to the level of 2021. They dispatched them. They play at home. The Olimpico is going to be full. It can be a factor. Ask Leicester and Bodo Glimt last season what kind of environment they found. Okay, it was the second leg of the knockout, but it can be really, really intimidating. Okay, both sides, they do not concede much. Roma, to be fair, they don't score many. Against Juventus, they try to play with a false 9 with Wijnaldum, Pellegrini and Dybala. They didn't really create much. It needed a long-range shot from Gianluca Mancini, the defender, to break the deadlock. Did they deserve to win? No, because Juventus hit the post 3 times. But overall, they are very, very competitive. They are fighting, and that's what Jose Mourinho has given them. They don't play any better than last season, but surely they got much more belief in them. 3 out of 4 of the last first legs in European competition have been under for Roma, including the Conference League final. I cannot see them really scoring far too many goals here. Probably a start for Bellotti, maybe Tammy Abraham will start. I think one between Pellegrini and Dybala is definitely rest. Under 2.25 goals, and as I said, the Real Sociedad, they keep a lot of clean sheet as well. 182 under 2.25 goals here.
Alvaro, is under your market?
It really is, and I tell you why. Because I think that Jose Mourinho will approach this as a 180 minutes game, because Roma is very safe right now, and they suffered 4 defeats at home before the World Cup. But after the World Cup, they only lost 1 game at home, and it was against Cremonese in Coppa Italia. That tells me that Roma right now is quite safe or quite confident about what they are doing, but they are playing against Real Sociedad, a club that mirrors what Roma does, or even does it better. Because they are in the Champions League spots in La Liga, but they've been third for a while. Roma right now is in a good moment as well, and of course, totally capable of qualifying for the Champions League. But Real Sociedad has been doing the same thing for many years. I mean, just dealing very well with the under 2.5 goal games, just managing spectacularly the tight margins. And, Real Sociedad, for example, this weekend is true. On Friday, they drew against Cadiz. It was a 0-0, but Real Sociedad rarely loses. And let me give you some stats about them for you to understand how good they are when there is a shortage of goals. In the Europa League, they have played 6 games so far. In 4 of them, we have had under 2.5 goals. And we're talking about a group with Manchester United. And in La Liga, they have played 24 games, and 17 of them, 17 out of 24, have been under 2.5 goals. And they got 25 points away this season. I know that the points don't count in the knockout tournaments, but Real Sociedad has been very good away from home. So maybe under 2.5 goals, because both sides think about the second leg at the Real Arena. It's a good one here. 163. I like it. And I also like the Asian handicap plus 0.75 for Real Sociedad. Very, very, very conservative, I know, but at the same time, this game for me is not a game to take any risk. Asian handicap plus 0.75 for Real Sociedad, 152, meaning very quickly that if they win, you win it. If they draw, you win it. And if they lose by 1, you just suffer half a lose. And I like it a lot because I think Real Sociedad has the players to control the game as well and to steal the ball away from Roma. We're talking about Silva, Brais Mendez, Merino, Zubimendi, and Kubo. Those 5 technical players are really good too. So I expect a low scoring game.
Yes, absolutely. I believe it's going to be like the atmosphere is going to be on fire in the Olímpico, but the football is going to stay quite quiet. A draw at halftime, odds averaging 2.04, 2.06 for this Roma against Real Sociedad. The next one could be tricky, guys, for Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah.
And at least they host Ferencvaros. They have things in common, this Europa League, because the Hungarian side topped the Group H ahead of Monaco, which was the team that Leverkusen has to defeat in the playoffs to get here. For Ferencvaros, it's the game of the season because they have 14 points lead in the league, and because the final of this Europa League will be played in Budapest. For Xavi Alonso's team, the dream of reaching Champions League football next season is also through this competition, because in the Bundesliga, despite winning 4-1 in the weekend, they are 9th in the table. Alvaro, Alonso has quality players at his disposal to overcome this first leg. Pierre Hincapié, Florian Wirtz, Ezequiel Palacios, Jeremy Frimpong, Moussa Diaby. 1.37 the odds for a Leverkusen win, in the range of a safe bet, I would say. You see it that way?
Yeah, I see it that way. And, they've got plenty of attackers and players with plenty of verticality as well. In fact, Diaby and Frimpong are one of the best partnerships in the Bundesliga right now. They are scoring a lot and passing the ball to each other a lot. This weekend, they beat Hertha 4-1. Has to be really nice to be a fan of a club like Bayer Leverkusen if you are especially interested in the show rather than the reliability, because Bayer Leverkusen can give you a heart attack sometimes. Look at what happened against Monaco, but they managed to get through. And they play entertaining football and they go at it. And the difference between Bayer Leverkusen and some other sides in the Europa League is that when Bayer Leverkusen can give a pass forward, they give a pass forward. When they can take a shot, they take a shot instead of giving a pass backwards or not taking a shot. And this is fantastically refreshing for a neutral. When it comes to Ferencvaros, they are just the opposite. I mean, they are unbeaten in 11 games. Okay, let's start by that. But on the other hand, that is domestically. In the Europa League, they have attempted only 20 attempts on target in 6 games in the group stage, which is very poor. But at the same time, their conversion ratio has been really decent because they scored 8 goals. So they are a side that they are the 4th in the Europa League, excluding the sides that came from the Champions League, excluding those sides. They are the 4th in the Europa League in passes attempted, for example. They barely shoot on target, only an average of 2.5 shots on target per game in the Europa League, and yet they qualified as first. They steal the ball and they finish the action. This is one clear trademark of this side, but still, I think Leverkusen is the favorite here. So I could go for the following. Look, I've got an adventurous one, which is Leverkusen to win and over 2.5 goals in the game, 183, and a very less adventurous one because Ferencvaros for me is a little bit of an incognita. I really don't know. They are enigmatic and they haven't played in Europe for 3 months now. So Leverkusen to win and under 4.5 goals, which is, as you can see, conservative, 157. But Leverkusen to win and over 2.5 goals, 183. I move myself between these two, but I'm going to go for the over 2.5 goals.
For anyone thinking of the possibility of a double chance, that stands at 3.42. If you think that Ferencvaros can take something from this first leg, although I agree with you guys, I really don't think so. Now we have Sporting Lisbon against Arsenal, the Portuguese side.
I haven't told you my tip. Like,
sorry,
very
Dani.
quick,
Sorry,
very
let's go back to
quickly.
that. Yeah, sorry for that.
But it's in the same line. It's in the same line with Alvaro. Leverkusen win and under 3.5 goals, 215. Look, Leverkusen have won 3 of the last 8. They beat Union Berlin 5-1. They were good at the weekend. I think it's a team that is really good where they got space to run into it, but also with the ball. And with Ferencvaros, I think last season they've improved from last season. Last season they finished 4th in the Europa League table. This season they qualified with a goal difference of -1. And yeah, but can they score? Can they go away and score? You know, they lost 3-1 to Karabakh in the UCL in the Champions League back in August. They only had a couple of players in double figures this season, Mae and Traore. I don't think they're going to score. I think Leverkusen to win 2-0, that's a good one. But I'm going to stake Leverkusen win and under 3.5 goals. So if Leverkusen wins 2-1 or 3-0, you win 215.
So those are all the tips for Leverkusen Ferencvaros. Sorry, Dani, for that one. Now, yes, we move on to Sporting Lisbon Arsenal. The Portuguese side, I said, an amazing job in Denmark to go through the playoff. 4-0 victory after drawing at home. Of course, this time around won't be that straight if they manage to overcome one of the favorites to lift the trophy. Last season, Sporting Lisbon faced another English team in the last 16 of a European competition. That game was Manchester City in the Champions League, and they suffered a 5-0 defeat at home. This Arsenal is playing at the level of the Manchester City we saw last season, so we will see what happens. Not just now, but they are playing with a fighting spirit as well. They are showing, like we saw on the weekend against Bournemouth, Sporting Alvaro has kept a clean sheet in the last 3 matches. If they want to dream with keeping the tie alive for London, they will have to make it 4 clean sheets in a row. There's no way out of that if not.
Yeah, and for this game, Leo, probably I will go for Arsenal to win, 2.15. I know that they will be rotating. But on the other hand, over the last 4 weeks, we have seen that Mikel Arteta has gotten new players on board. The last one being Reece Nelson, the guy who scored the match-winning goal against Bournemouth. But what about, for example, Fabio Vieira? He started against Bournemouth. What about, I think that Tierney, it's another decent player. Yeah, absolutely. Leandro Trossard signed, Nketiah as well, Jorginho to give a breather to Thomas. So I think that Arsenal has a certain abundance and depth in the squad that they didn't have back in November. So I'm going to back Arsenal to win just because their mentality is fantastic. Their mentality is really good and they are managing the frustration very well. You and I, in a different show, Leo, we saw how Mikel Arteta is referring to frustration and how they are managing it constantly, because he's very happy about the mentality of his club. And I think that the Sporting Club of Portugal, this season, they are suffering against the big sides. Not only they are 4th in the Portuguese league, in the Primera Liga, but they have lost at home against Frankfurt, against Marseille, and twice against Porto this year. So against a strong opposition at home, obviously they crumble, which is normal, but on the other hand, some other sides like Arsenal at home don't crumble, you know? So I think that that's why we have to consider them Arsenal favorites for this game. So Arsenal to win 2.15, but if you want to water it down a little bit and be a slightly more conservative, Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Arsenal, 187, and if they draw, you only suffer half a lose.
Dani, is the best news maybe for Sporting Lisbon that Arteta might rotate their players, thinking of the first leg?
They will rotate. I mean, they got 12 games to go in the Premier League, and their option are, of course, to rotate as many players as possible. Arsenal got a few away games in the Premier League that are really tough. Liverpool, West Ham, Newcastle, and Man City. If they manage only to lose one of these, they will be in with a serious shot to get to the final day of the Premier League and probably be ahead of Manchester City. Lose 2 of these 4 games away, and you might be behind Manchester City, because I think Manchester City are going to now start winning more games in a row than what we previously saw. But Arsenal have won 5 of the last 7 away games. And when we thought they were going to crumble after losing to Man City at home 3-1, they actually kicked on and won very well at Villa Park and at Leicester. Now, I think Arteta has been fantastic in the rotation of players. Look at the way he's using Martinelli, for example, and also, obviously, Reece Nelson, Fabio Vieira, as mentioned by Alvaro. Are they becoming a little bit leaky at the back, though? They conceded against Bournemouth after 9 seconds. They were caught cold. It's never going to happen again. But recently, for example, at home, they only kept 3 clean sheets in the last 18 home games. That's where we're supposed to be stronger. Sporting a very up and down season. They took 4 points out of Spurs this season, especially in the first game. They were really good. But they did struggle to find the rhythm in the Portuguese league. I think it's a side that has lost, obviously, Pedro Porro in January. So there's been a little bit of an hemorrhage of talent going there. Both to score. I like both to score. I think Sporting against Midtjylland at home, there are a lot of chances. They should have taken them in the return leg. They were better. Both to score 196 here. That's my favorite one.
And for the first half, Asian handicap 0 for Sporting has also hovering around 2.3, 2.4. So that's the interesting one between Sporting Lisbon and Arsenal in this first leg of the round of 16 in the Europa League. Next, a tie which we have already seen the trailer in the group stage.
Yes.
Union Berlin at home with
unacceptable.
Yeah.
It really is.
You don't like to see a repetition of
no
group Matchday? Okay.
It's too early. It's a bit early.
No, it's early, but not only that. I mean, why should the draw get this done? I mean, I think that if these two sides meet in the final, fine, there's nothing you can do about it. But I think that the draw should exclude a side from playing again the same side again.
The thing is, I guess when they need to take into the possibility of not facing a team from the same country, then they were running out of options for this Union Berlin facing, again, Union signed Gillois. They saw each other in the group stage. Now, round of 16 of Europa League again. The Belgian side topped the Group D and the German sensation came second. In that group stage anyway, Union Saint-Gillois took the 3 points in Berlin, and in the return friction were the Germans, the one who celebrated. Clear favorites here, Union Berlin, also 1.71 for a win. Guys, do you see it in a similar fashion, Alvaro?
I am going to go for under 2.5 goals. I think that this is probably the most likely outcome. I mean, they played in the group stage against each other. There was one win for each, and both wins were away, and it was a 1-0 thing. Union Berlin, they did very well knocking out Ajax, but they are not scoring many goals lately. They drew 0-0 with Köln in the weekend, and the reality has changed a lot over the last 3 weeks. They are no longer chasing the title, if they ever were, but now their main target is to qualify for the Champions League for the next season. They have failed to score in 4 of the last 5 games. I'm talking about Union Berlin, and they are the lowest scoring side in the Bundesliga's top 11. Whereas Union Saint-Gillois, I mean, they were doing great until February, but then in February they were winless for 4 games, and in the Europa League their numbers are as follows. I mean, they scored 11 goals in the group stage, which is a decent average. They conceded 7, but they are not the kind of team that scores many as well. I think that they are rather a side that is not very flashy going forward, and I think that Union Berlin at home is going to keep them calm. So under 2.5 goals, 177. And again, I don't know why this season I have to watch this game 4 times. I just don't know. I think that they should do something about it. Really. Imagine that happening in the Champions League. That Bayern and Inter have to play in the last 16 round. This happens because there is this playoff going on. But imagine that. Yeah. Or that Milan has to play against Chelsea in the Champions League right now. We will be complaining about it. It's the same thing.
Dani, your thoughts?
Well, I remember one season I watched Barcelona Real Madrid like 7 times, but I mean that's
but nothing to do with the organization of the tournament. Nothing to do. They were the best sides in Europe, and that's what happened.
I know. That was rather boring. Anyway, Union Berlin against Union Saint-Gillois. You can tell the unions are very strong these days. Look at the many strikes we had in England. Anyway, Union Berlin. I think. Good dig, I like it. I think if I had to pick a winner, I will go for Union Berlin here. I think they've been really awkward to play against. They can make it really difficult. And they beat Ajax. They've done really well against one of the top sides in Europe. They've committed 120 fouls in the Europa League, Union Berlin. This is more than anybody. So they make it really difficult. Kept 5 clean sheets, by the way. yes, they're a low-scoring side, but I think they can make it awkward for you. And I guess, again, I think Union Saint-Gilloise, again, are a very nice surprise, a team, one of the oldest teams in Europe, of the team of the capital, Brussels. The owner is Tony Bloom, who owns, of course, Brighton. They discovered Karu Mitoma, who's doing great. It is, I think, an interesting side. It's a side that has lost the manager, Felice Matsu, has lost Mitoma, has lost Undav to Brighton, but they managed to bring new players as well, like Boniface, like Adingra. It is a team that goes for it. It's got a lot of enthusiasm. They beat Rangers 2-0 back in August, only to lose 3-0 at Ibrox Park. It is a side that actually, I think, goes for it quite a lot, sometimes a little bit recklessly, if you like. They conceded in 4 of the last 5, won 2-1 against Open on Sunday. They only got the 6th best defense in Belgium. And I think, it is a sort of team, Union Saint-Gilloise, that normally tend to win by outscoring you. Can they do it against Union Berlin? I'm not sure in this case. So if I had to choose, I'm going to go for a Union Berlin win, but also the under 2.5 goals, which I think is the most likely outcome with a German win, 179.
I will think of the same, of Union Berlin winning this one, but to win 2-0, higher odds a little bit more for Union Berlin, 2.5 to win 2-0 for Union Berlin. Now, guys, we move to Turin for Juventus Freiburg. Juve gave us an exhibition in the playoff against Nantes in the second leg, with Angel Di Maria scoring a hat trick. We mentioned before, a weekend to forget for them. They will now face a Freiburg side who is fighting for Champions League places in the Bundesliga, 5th in the table, but only 7 points from the top. And Dani, with the point deduction they suffer in the Serie A, I believe this Europa League has rediscovered the significance as well for Juve. Massive favorites here with odds of 1.71 for the first leg.
It looks like the best chance to play in Champions League for Juventus at the moment is to win the Europa League, although they might be given back the 15 points, but they might be deducted more points for other inquiries of the FA and the magistrates. But apart from that, I think that the first defeat in 8 games against Roma was not totally deserved. They hit the post 3 times. It was a physical game, not spectacular. We can call it boring, but after all, Mourinho against Allegri, what can you expect? Allegri kind of ditched the front 3. They play with 3 up front, Chiesa, Di Maria, and Vlahovic against Nantes in the first leg, which was interesting. They created chances, but now we understood he wants to play with 2 wing backs. Kostic, by the way, is doing really well, so he deserves a place. You cannot fit Chiesa on the same side unless you're desperate for a goal. So it's always going to be 1 man up front, probably Vlahovic again, because Moise Kean has been sent off after 14 seconds coming into the pitch.
That's incredible.
That was incredible. So he's not going to play this game for sure. Milik is injured, so it's again Vlahovic. Behind him, either Chiesa or Di Maria. Di Maria has been great. Look, I think Di Maria for Italy, it's another category when he's fit. The problem is that obviously he's not always fit. So who plays alongside Chiesa, alongside Vlahovic? Chiesa as a second striker? I'm not sure. But this is going to be tight, I think, for Juventus. We saw against Nantes, they had a few struggles in the first leg. But the bar has got higher for Juve. Juve has only won 2 games of 8 in Europe this season. They've not been terrible domestically, but we need to use a caveat. They got the best squad, the deepest squad, and they got also the team that should have been won the league, really. So they've been underperforming, if you like. But now, with Pogba coming back, with Paredes coming back from injury, with Chiesa coming back, got more options as well. And credit for Allegri for playing a lot of young players as well in this such a troubled season, the likes of Fagioli, for example, and Miretti, who is currently injured, by the way. Freiburg, 4 of the last 5 games have been under 2.5 goals. They're going to be difficult to beat, difficult to break down. I can see Juventus probably qualifying, but in the second leg, I'm going to go for under 1 goal in the first half here, 183, which means if there is 1-0, a 1-0 win for each side, you get your money back. 0-0 in the first half, it's 183.
Alvaro?
I prefer to go for Juventus to win, really. 167. I think that, as we saw against Nantes, the quality of the players of Juventus imposed itself. And we saw that with Di Maria scoring a hat-trick. And in this case, Juve has a much better squad and very dangerous players as well. Dusan Vlahovic and Kostic and Di Maria and so many, Chiesa, who can play there and who can inflict you pain anytime. And on top of that, they are playing at home. I mean, the season of Juve hasn't been great, but on the other side, if there wasn't an administrative decision against them, probably right, they will be second in the Serie A. So
yeah, minus
they are
15
still-
from Napoli though, minus
Yeah,
16
it's-
from Napoli. So it's just
yeah,
it's
but Napoli is doing a
underwhelming.
fantastic season.
Yeah, but it's underwhelming. It's underwhelming. They lost a lot of.
It is
lost-
underwhelming. They got knocked out of the Champions League, and they will be second in the Serie A. But the thing is that
that's true.
I think that what Napoli does cannot be an element of comparison with the rest, because they are doing such a good season that I think that no one could have caught up with them, really. But anyway, I think that Juventus, what I want to say is that their position on the table is very deceptive. I mean, we're praising Inter on another show, and then we're criticizing Juventus in this one. And I think that there has to be a middle point, or there has to be a little bit of a coherence here. And I believe that Juve has the players to win this game. That's why I'm going to back them to win 167, or even with an ace handicap of minus 0.75, meaning that if they win by 2, you win, and if they win by 1, you only achieve half a win, right? But I think that I'm going to go for that one, taking into consideration that Freiburg is a good scoring side. In the Europa League, they scored 13. They scored 13 in the group stage. And in Germany, they have enjoyed a 5 unbeaten game run, but still, I think that Juventus is a better proposition right now.
Yeah, I can see the Juve starting on the front foot, at least the first half, trying to make a statement in front of their people. A Juventus win in the first half, 2.36. Guys, now after of what we have witnessed in Anfield, this first leg will have a completely different weight. I mean, in Old Trafford, Manchester United with Real Betis, I don't know if anyone has ever written an academic paper, to be honest, on how to get quickly to your best after an humiliating defeat of 7-0 against your feasted rival. But if one exists, then Erik ten Hag and his players should read it. For sure, the atmosphere on Thursday will be rough for Betis, because Manchester United supporters would like to show that they are behind the team. Betis managed to keep Real Madrid quiet for a 0-0 draw. So basically, Real Madrid defeated Liverpool. Liverpool defeated Manchester United. And Betis drew with Real Madrid. Alvaro, does transitive character exist in football? Can we believe in a double chance for Betis here, showing odds of 3? Who will you trust?
You dismantle me with that run of results, and Pellegrini is coming back to Old Trafford as well. If that's any interesting, but he was the manager of Manchester City, and he won a title for Manchester City using probably one of the most dominant midfielders to the peak of his powers, like Yaya Touré. But I think Manchester United suffered a ridiculous defeat against Liverpool, 7-0. That's the kind of defeat that will resonate in history, because Manchester United hadn't lost a league game for such a margin since 1931. Of course, they are wounded, and therefore they will be dangerous. They will be eager to recover from that defeat as soon as possible. And they are playing against Betis. And Betis can be a side that sometimes looks a little bit toothless. Up front, they don't have any striker who is actually, let's put it this way, intimidating. Even though Borja Iglesias is having a good season, Juanmi can have a good impact too, but they are not particularly intimidating. They are not Marcus Rashford. And then in defense, I have seen more fierce and aggressive defenses than Betis one, but overall, they keep the ball very well. Rodri, for example, against Real Madrid the other day, was super tidy on the ball and probably the best player on the pitch. They know how to play slow, and sometimes they suffer in transition. So we saw that, for example, last season in the Champions League, in the Europa League against Bayer Leverkusen, when Betis couldn't cope with the pace of Bayer Leverkusen. I think that they are a rather slow side, but against Real Madrid, they played strangely on Sunday, a box-to-box game, and more or less they managed to stay on the game, and Real Madrid has more physicality, in my opinion. Hopefully Canales will be back, because he's very important in that midfield. Fekir is out for the remainder of the season, but Betis is a little bit toothless in the boxes, and I think that Manchester United is particularly edgy in the boxes, with Lisandro and Varane playing together, and up front with Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes. So for this game, I'm going to go for Manchester United to win 145. It's almost a safe bet. But if you want to spice it up a little bit, Manchester United to win and over 1.5 goals, altogether 167. Yeah, I stay there.
Dani, yesterday Ten Hag was very critical, of course, of his players. He spoke about unprofessional display from his team. So do you expect many changes looking into the first leg with Betis?
He will make changes, but I think he also will try to stick with as many players as possible who played, let's say, make 3-4 changes. He will stick with some players who played at Old Trafford because they do need to show him that they can react. And it was very worrying that in the second half, they didn't react after the second goal. And they conceded a couple of goals from their corners. So that was really what let Manchester United down. On the other hand, every single shot that Liverpool had pretty much ended up on the back of the net.
That's the thing.
Manchester United in the first half had a few chances. They had a few in the second half, could have scored a goal. Do you believe in expected goals? I do believe it partially. 3.44 for Liverpool against 0.84 for Manchester United, which means Liverpool get the 3 points. That's all it counts. But, when we talk about Manchester United, it was the first defeat in 22 games for a team that was not built to win the league. It was built to finish in top 4. I think they will finish in top 4. They've been impressive since that defeat to Real Sociedad ages ago. They won 15 of the last 16 games at home. Not all of them really clearly. If you look at the win against West Ham, for example, in the Cup, in the stoppage time. But what would impress me about Manchester United is they've got a lot of plans, plan A, plan B, plan C. There are a lot of tactical changes at halftime. The player seems very adaptable. Maybe this was just a blip, of course, a very embarrassing one, but they will react. They should react. Maybe they celebrated too much after winning the League Cup against Newcastle. Who knows? After all, it's good that they also played more games than Liverpool. They got all that those midweek games against Barcelona to negotiate with. They got the League Cup. So there are a lot of factors. But as I said, every single shot of Liverpool ended up in the back of the net. So it is also a freak results. They're going to react. They're going to win a half-time for me, and they're going to win a full-time. That's a really good value. 220, half-time, full-time, Man United win.
Yes, I believe it was a one-off switch off from Man United players yesterday, although I just don't like too much that the criticism of Ten Hag is only directed to his players. He made mistake yesterday as well. Maybe he was slow to make a few changes during the game, but that's a different matter. From Manchester to Seville, for Sevilla, Fenerbache. If Sampaoli manages to find the European attire of this team, then they had a chance. Yes. If they put on La Liga clothes, things can get complicated. Sevilla, a team capable of trashing PSV at home and losing 6-1 in the Wanda Metropolitano, as we have witnessed and seen this weekend. They are out of the relegation zone only on goal difference, and they will face a side who is competing against the best Galatasaray we have seen in years in the Turkish league. Alvaro, how much can Sevilla appeal to their love history with this competition? I mean, you can do it once, twice, but maybe not all of the time. Bookies actually cannot decide if there will be goals or not, almost parity with goals over and goals under markets. What's your view here?
My view is that I think that whatever happened in 2020 with Sevilla in this competition, whatever happened from 2014 until 2016, it doesn't matter anymore. Because if you check Sevilla's squad in 2020, when they won this competition, they barely played any of the players who are now in the squad. Bono is one of the ones remaining, but they have changed the main striker. They have changed the best midfielder they had, Ever Banega, for Rakitic, and they have changed so many players that can you actually put in this squad the responsibility of winning the Europa League if they are fighting for the relegation in La Liga? I don't think so. And today I was reading a very interesting article in El País about how many players have lost the faith in Sampaoli, to the point that apparently, according to El País, there is a player like Rakitic, who has obviously like a very important voice in the locker room, who doesn't like Sampaoli at all, and he's letting everyone know about it, and like little groups are being created. It's not like a unity of players and the manager together. There was another very representative image at Camp Nou, I believe it happened, when Sampaoli sent a paper during the game to Marcos Acuña, the left back, and Marcos Acuña just didn't want to see it. So, the manager his authority has been undermined. And I think Sevilla, playing at home, they are going to be dangerous against a team like Fenerbache, because obviously they have to put a good display against their fans. And on a good night, I mean, they've got a good goalkeeper, they got a good striker like in the city, and they've got a bunch of competitive players who can actually do the job very well. But I wouldn't back Sevilla to win the competition or anything. I'm going to focus only on this game. I know that they are playing against Fenerbache, who can be dangerous with players like Batshuayi, for example, up front, or Joshua King. They've been there, they've done that. Even Ener Valencia, who scored the first goal in the World Cup. Yes, but I'm going to back Sevilla to win here, just because they are playing at home and because they come from a better league. Simple as that. I don't go into many stats or details here. Sevilla to win 169 and Sevilla to win the second half. I particularly like this one because there is a better value, and not only that. I think that when Sevilla scores the first goal at home, like against PSV, the second one comes easily. Sevilla to win the second half, 2.0.
I have to say, I'm not surprised that players being maybe upset or against the manager, in this case, Sampaoli. We have seen a lot of that with Argentina, actually. Dani, how do you see this tie, this first leg, Sevilla-Fenerbahce?
If Sevilla doesn't win this one, the first leg, I think they're going to go out because their away form, it's awful. Lost 2-0 to PSV. In La Liga, we mentioned that they've been awful. It's going to be difficult, I think, in the return in Istanbul. Fenerbahce are doing okay. They topped their group in the Europa League. They are unbeaten, second behind Galatasaray. They got goal scorers. Fenerbahce, Ener Valencia scored the weekend. Joshua King played for Bournemouth twice in double figures in the Premier League, so let's not underestimate him. Batshuayi might be doubtful. And, some good players as well. Kadioglu linked with some top teams in Europe. He's a defender. They're the top scorers in Turkey. 8 games unbeaten run. The last time they lost was to Galatasaray, 3-0. This is going to be tough. I think if Sevilla wins it, it's not going to be a riot. They're not going to win 3-0 as they did against PSV. I'm going to go for an under 2.5 goals here, 193.
Perfect, guys. So those were, anyone wants to add anything else before we are getting closer to the end?
Well, I think that we have the Premier League leader in the Europa League, and there is something. This is something that automatically has to put them as favorites. If we're talking about the competition in general, because the Bundesliga leader is in the Champions League, the Serie A leader is in the Champions League, the La Liga leader is there as well. But here, the Premier League leader and one of the more refreshing sides in Europe and in the Europa League. So I think that we have a favorite here, a clear candidate to win it.
All right, and now we can finally arrive to our final stop in this round of 16 for today, which is Shaktar Donetsk at home against Feyenoord. Of course, what we call home, but they are playing in Poland. Shakhtar, who like Liverpool, also won 7-0 this weekend, and much of their fate may be decided in this first leg, I believe, against Feyenoord, who's top of the Eredivisie. Dani, we have seen Shakhtar a lot this season, Champions League group stage, then the Europa League playoffs, where they won on penalties against Rans away from home. There is, of course, an emotional aspect of this team that may push them forward, but we have seen as well a lot of this Feyenoord, and they seem to have the edge on this tie. Do you see it similarly?
I think we don't have to underestimate Shaktar Donetsk. They've been stunning against Rana. They took a lot of chances at home, didn't convert them many. In the second half, in the second game, they were good at it. They also could defend. As I said, the emotional side of it. This is a side that every time they play a game, then they need to be 10 hours on the bus to go back to their base. And it was the first win in Polish soil against Rennes. It's going to be tough, but we saw the Shakhtar has got a lot of... I think these two teams are very similar. They got a lot of young players. They can be a little bit naive. Sometimes they don't take the chances and they leave the door open to opportunities. They're good Feyenoord. They're a good side, though. They're unbeaten in the last 16. They got a few injuries to deal with. But, as I said, when you mentioned the young players, you go Gertruda, Hertman, Mart Piffer. These are all young players that might end up being called by the Dutch national team. No away clean sheet for Feyenoord in this Europa League. They conceded 4 at Lazio and 2 at Midtjylland. I think, as we saw last season in the Conference League, the team managed by Arne Slot, always scoring quite a lot of goals despite changing a lot of the teams. So far 12 goals from Jimenez, 18 has got, or Kunkoku as well. He's an interesting player, 18 caps for Turkey. So a lot of youth there. I think it's going to be a lively one. I think it's going to be a few goals here, but I'm going to go for Shakhtar not to lose the first half at least. 0 Asian handicap, 0 for Shakhtar in the first half, 213.
Alvaro, can you see goals in this tie?
Yeah, it could happen. I think that both teams to score could be interesting in this game, definitely. I think that for Feyenoord, it could be interesting to, leave part of the job done in the first leg, because in 2 weeks' time they are playing against Ajax, and that game is going to be decisive for the Eredivisie. But yeah, Feyenoord is having a really good season. They've been unbeaten for a while now, 17 games. Timber is out, one of their important players, that's for sure. But you look at their squad, and maybe they don't have a striker, like, for example, like Broby, for example, who is doing fantastically, or Xavi Simons, a super franchise player that PSV has. But on the other hand, it's just an addition, an addendum of good players having a good season, like Kotsku, for example, or Danilo, who are lifting Feyenoord, and that's why they are up there, top of the Eredivisie right now, and fighting with Ajax, something that we didn't expect at the beginning of the season. Then, when it comes to Shakhtar, I think that they are competing despite the circumstances, as we said before. I always said 2-3 years ago that the good side in Ukraine was Shakhtar, not Dynamo Kiev. And the number of good players of Shakhtar who ended up in good sides in Europe is incredible. I mean, look at Marcos Antonio, David Neres, you go to Fernando, you go to Modric, you go to Tete,
Marlon.
and you real...
Marlon. No, sorry.
Maicon to Corinthians.
Maicon,
I mean, yeah. I mean, they have so many good players with such a good quality, and all these Brazilian good players with creativity on the ball who were good on possession. They left, and Shakhtar had to change the style completely, and they have become a rather reactive side. Even though when they attack, they go for real, and they try to put many bodies in the box. But it's very impressive what they are doing. So both teams to score could be interesting, and I'm gonna back Shakhtar here a little bit. So double chance for Shakhtar is 163, and I could stay there happily.
And also I will add onto that one, because I will also trust a little bit, why not here, Shaktar Donetsk, Asian handicap 0 for the home team, odds of 2.22 for this Shaktar Donetsk Feyenoord. So there, guys, those were all tips and analysis for the round of 16 first leg in the Europa League with Alvaro Romeo and Daniele Fisichella. Before we say goodbye, I will ask you both for your best bet, safe bet, and ACCA, starting with you, Dani.
Best bet, Manchester United to bounce back and beat Betis, 150.
And your ACCA?
Roma Real Sociedad under 2.5 goals, Sporting Lisbon Ajax double chance 1x, Manchester United Betis over 1.5 goals, and Sevilla beat Fenerbache, total odds 624. 624,
that sounds nice. Alvaro?
Yeah, my one is going to be much weaker, actually. Skinter. Juventus to win is 167, of course, less risk. Juventus to winning is my safe bet. And then Mayaka, in this at this point in time, I'm not too sure about anything in the Europa League, but Arsenal being the favorite to win it. So I'm going to go for Leverkusen to score over 1.5 goals, Juventus to win, and Sevilla to win. You put all those three together, and it pays a total of 4. That will be my ACCA.
Great. So fingers crossed for those two ACCAs, guys. That's great. I hope you enjoyed the show, and do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. See you next time around, guys. Thank you, Alvaro. Thank you, Dani.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.